Hey everyone, welcome back to Power Tips. Today we're going to continue talking about the 2025 release wave 1 for Power Platform, and we're specifically talking about Copilot Studio. And keep in mind that Copilot Studio is going to include your chatbots for your internal users or your external users, but also now it includes agents, which allow us to program autonomous actions that our bot can go off and do and report back to our users on tasks that have gotten done. So we've moved from just a co-pilot where we're always in the driver's seat to now allowing us to have agents that can also do some of that work for us. So let's jump into some of the announcements that we have. First up, something about these agents is now we're also going to be able to analyze the usage of the different actions within those agents, right? So previously, you guys remember we talked about connectors that we could bring in as plug-in actions within a Copilot. Now we can put those into agents and we can track which of those actions are being used, see the metrics for those to determine what we can do to make this better, how we can improve those actions, and if there's any errors that we need to resolve. Have you guys tried any of this out yet?
I have not.
I've been building agents and stuff, but I haven't been looking at any of the analytics yet because they're not actually being used yet. They're all in development.
So we'll get excited for usage to come.
Sure, exactly.
And we also, for these custom agents, we can analyze the knowledge sources, right? So we previously, like in the last announcement, we could track the actions that those agents were taking. And in this announcement, we can look at what knowledge that they're using to be able to respond and determine what they need to be, right? So we can check their accuracy and reliability and the performance so we know what we need to improve.
This one stood out. This one jumped out at me because this reminds me of, in the marketing context, the idea of looking at what you sent and what's resonating and what's not, what's being used and why aren't they being used, right? If that to me is something that's more important. It's good to see that a knowledge source is being used, but if we have knowledge sources and it's not being used, I'd love to understand why. Does it not have the right data? Are the questions and the prompts not invoking that source for some reason, and why is that, and how do we get our users, which ties to something that we'll talk about later.
Right, exactly. Is it that people don't need to know this, or that I haven't tagged my content correctly for the bot to find it, right?
Yep.
Cool. Speaking of knowledge, oh wait, that's my next one. First, we're going to talk about two really quick updates included in the release notes here around the channel updates. So first of all, you're going to be able to publish your agents to WhatsApp, which is pretty simple to talk about. I think it's useful if your customers are in WhatsApp. It's just another channel where your agents can go first, gather some information for you, perform some simple actions, all that great stuff. This one's listed for public preview any day now in May, and there is no GA date on it. So if you use WhatsApp, make sure to provide a lot of feedback to this. Otherwise, GA date may never happen. Then we have SharePoint. So you'll be able to publish and connect your agents to SharePoint. There's a screenshot here because that is actually something coming soon. This is going straight to GA this month. And this will allow you to deploy your custom agents directly to your SharePoint sites, which opens up a lot of possibilities for both internal and external users. Of course, all of these are going to respect the security model that you have in place. And a couple updates on knowledge sources that I wanted to touch on. So the first one is just the way that you search for and find knowledge sources. It's simplified and it's search first. Simple change that hopefully makes your life easier to find your knowledge source without having to know the exact query to look for. Going straight to GA in June. So that update's coming soon. The other big one I think here is SharePoint lists. So SharePoint as the knowledge source has existed, but SharePoint lists have been excluded. I know a lot of organizations rely heavily on their SharePoint lists, so this is great. This is going to let you ground your agents specifically to SharePoint lists, which is cool. So public preview for this, like the last one we talked about, is May and no GA date known yet. And then a slightly controversial one that we can chat about that I think you might have some thoughts on is Teams chats as a knowledge source. So this is just internal chat. This is also chat on a meeting. And of course, this is going to respect your security as well. And you have to be a participant in the chat or the meeting chat in order to grab information through that agent in the Teams chats. So this includes messages sent or shared in channels, meetings, and group chats. It's going straight to GA next month. So what do you guys think about that?
And group chats includes a one-on-one chat. It doesn't have to be a group of people.
Yeah.
That's just two people could constitute a group chat.
Correct.
Yeah, controversial.
So do you want your Teams chats to be a knowledge source for an agent?
I think it's a good reminder to not put controversial messages in your Teams chat. Also, but mainly I'm curious, like, how is Copilot going to interpret all of my GIFs, right? Like, that's usually how I respond to the items, and it's a whole language. So how are they going to know what I meant when they're reviewing the chat?
I feel like you're going to get a lot of responses that says something like meow.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
That's it. This is interesting. So the security trimmed nature of it, right? So to your point, Heidi, you have to be a member of the chat to be able to use it and to be able to get information from it. But there's obviously lots of questions that come out of this, and I'd love to think that it's going to perfectly security trim everything, and it should. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't do that, but I think it's going to be concerning for people because let's be real. We vent to people, with our colleagues, and we have sessions where like, I can't believe that this just happened, or this thing, or this decision that was made by our organization. And it's not that we're, necessarily not in favor of it. It's just we just have feedback, and we're sometimes critical, and I think there's things that we say sometimes that we probably say in confidence, and is it truly in confidence now? I don't know. Interesting.
Right? Or could this agent accidentally surface my true feelings about Microsoft renaming the marketing product to Microsoft when I might not want them to?
Yeah.
And to be clear, anything in Teams is never in confidence because your
Fair.
Administrator can still see it.
Totally fair. Yeah.
But we did kind of skip over SharePoint, and I think that's cool because we already could add our SharePoint document libraries as a source. Now we can add our lists as a source, and we'll be able to deploy our bots in SharePoint. So you could have a specific bot in your library using all the different data there. So I think there's a lot of power there for like large libraries and complex scenarios.
I agree with that.
On that note too, there's that. So for a while now, we've had in SharePoint, you could create a SharePoint agent, which is essentially the same thing. It's interesting that they're pushing this, and I actually heard somebody say out loud the other day from Microsoft. Now, one person making a comment, so I'm not saying the whole organization is saying this, but their perception of that functionality is always start in Copilot Studio and embed it in this manner, because when you build them, say a SharePoint agent, you click the button, you create a SharePoint agent. It works great in that context, but it apparently hallucinates more, and it's really complicated to move that somewhere else to make it available in another context, which makes sense because it's built in the context of that SharePoint site. But interesting warning that they put out there, always start in Copilot Studio. Again, that's one person's comment, their feelings. It wasn't an official statement, but interesting that was floated as somebody who has a lot of interaction with people who are using these tools, and that was their feedback. So take that for what it's worth. Yeah.
Pro tips from Malcolm.
From somebody else via me, so don't hurt the messenger. So the two I had are pretty basic ones. This one caught my eye because, and you two were both in the same session. We were at DynamicsCon last week, and so we attended as the very last session, a very high energy session with Sean Astrachan and Franco Musso. And so a great session, and it revolved a little bit around AI search, and they got into some detail around this indexing and vectorizing of data and fascinating stuff. We don't have time to go into it now, but this one jumped out at me because what they showed in some respects was that the AI search capabilities provided much faster and better, I think it's fair to say, better results than your Dataverse agent or things like that. So interesting to me that this is coming out as an item that you can use this as a knowledge source. To your point earlier, lots of knowledge source stuff coming out. But the commentary at the bottom, right, that these are indexes built by pro devs, which is definitely where I got lost in the session when he started getting into the detail on how he did what he did. I was like immediately glossed over and was like, yeah,
I just remember face table. That's really
yeah, that's right. Yes, face table definitely came up. Good call. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It just sounds like just like you spell it, but it's apparently not how you say it.
adaptable.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one. And then the other one was, this is such a weird one. I debated putting this in here, but to me, prompting, it's like we're relearning how to search, right? Remember when Google first came out? Or maybe not when we first came out, but when we started using it, you had to learn how to search for stuff. And I see prompting, you hear this commentary a lot. Prompting is the new like searching. You have to know how to effectively prompt. You can't just throw stuff at it and expect it to work exactly the way you want. You really have to be methodical and strategic about what you're prompting and how you're structuring it. And so this idea of adding suggested prompts for people who are just getting started, kind of tying to what Kylie, you were talking about earlier, if we can help people learn how to actually ask the right questions to invoke the correct knowledge sources, that's really important. And so adding suggested prompts to custom copilots is really cool. A little confused about what the difference is because you always have those tiles when you create an agent. I thought those were suggested prompts, but apparently this seems like it's a little different, but the release notes are super vague on it. So interesting one for me because I think it's a really important, I mean, prompting is a skill and knowing how to invoke the right data is a skill. And so being able to provide something for people to help would be great. So I don't know if you guys have any commentary on those before we wrap.
No, this is great way to try and train our users to better use the bot, and then we'll use our analytics to better train the bot to work with our users, and it'll all be great.
All connected. To throw out to a weird show that was on for a while. Anyways, that brings us to a close. We thank you so much for watching yet another episode of Power Tips. We're excited to come back at you next time. We hope you learned something. If you have questions, comments, or just tidbits to share, please put them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.